Want to see something funny? Look at this iron XP. The higher level irons give less XP than the lower level ones. Or this small gongri here gives less XP than every level of Luia. The small Glaffins giving less than Kerns. Okay, none of this makes any sense. Who decided this was okay? As you just saw, this means leveling in Darkon 3 is pretty confusing in terms of knowing where the best leveling spots are. Those weren't the only highlights, by the way. There are 3 points where a mob just one level higher gives like 50% more XP than the one before it. Let's not forget about the infamous decaying mobs some of you are probably already familiar with. And if that wasn't enough, this is the only level range where mobs have increasingly higher parry and block rate, which is actually a big part of why the desert mobs suck so much compared to metamids, but don't worry about that because I already took that info into account when making the EXP chart. So here it is, the EXP chart you know and love. But we're not going to use it today. Well, not this one at least, and there's a good reason for that. Take a look at this spawn, or this spawn, or this spawn. Pause the video if you want to try and find the issue. Meanwhile, I'll give you no actual time to do so and just explain. They're all mixed up together. If you look at the chart, it very neatly divides up and shows exactly which mob would be the most efficient. But obviously that's not always reality. So, instead of blindly trusting this chart, I made a second chart, but with mixed spawns taken into account and averaged. Not a perfect solution, but I would say it's much closer to the reality of how people actually play. Also, there's a third version without decay mobs you can find in the description because, let's be real, no one's leveling up literally outside of Master. So there's no real reason to have them and make things more complicated than they already are. With all of that out of the way, let's go over where you actually want to level. Also, welcome section skippers, so kind of you to join us just now. The chart starts at level 66 because that's the level you'll be when you're done with Fiona and such. But if you haven't, the best place to level is at the Ciliacas, which, coincidentally, according to this chart, is still the best place to level even at 66. So you're at the fish for 66 and 67, then move up. I guess down actually. The green monks are quite literally downhill, and stay there till level 70. Technically, boots are a little bit more efficient, but not by anything you'd notice. Just go to whichever spawn has fewer people, honestly. Once you're 70, you're gonna want to move to Mushpoi. If you can, try to target the captains specifically because they have a big XP bump over the smalls and normals. Not a big deal when you first arrive, but as you close the gap, the captains become better and better comparatively. If you have a way to decay mine for Pink Roach, you'll be here until 77 or 78. Otherwise, go anti-query at 80. You'll want to stay at smalls here if you can. The normal ones can stun, which isn't lethal since you're not AoE, but it'll slow you down a bit and your RM can't have Guvertiella until 80, so you can't unstun yourself that way either. You made an RM, right? Just checking? Well, you didn't. That's not my business, I guess. Anyway, if you're at Trees, you'll move to Luia's at 83. If you're a Pink Roach, supposedly it's correct to move to Luia at 87, but speaking from personal experience, the respawns in Decaying are exceptionally slow, so I would encourage you to consider moving to Luia at 83 as well. Or maybe even anti-query a bit earlier, especially if the other channels are occupied so you can't skip the respawn by channel hopping. And because we're here again, no, I still don't consider Blood Trilipy an option. Actually, consider this. The Blood Trilipy room has, in addition to the fire element Blood Trilipy, wind and electric Kyakuns. Unless you have 3 weapons you're switching between on the fly, you're going to be losing a lot of damage and by extension efficiency if you have to hit any of these Kyakuns, especially the electric one. So much so that Luia's actually remain the better option at all levels. And I haven't even mentioned the leaders and hazardous Trilipy, which I would say are only manageable when you're on Master. So let's not go there. Let's just be at Luia's until 90, and go to Currents which are so efficient you won't even mind that they can stun you. Bonus points if your RM got a level into Guvertiella so they can break the stun. You don't even need it higher than level 1. They're probably not going to stun you more than once every 10 seconds. Probably. Okay, you're going to be here for like 10 levels. Obviously that's just tempting fate, but you'll be able to count on one hand how many times that actually happens. Trust me. And then we have the all-popular Glaffins. I wouldn't recommend being here before like 97, but I recognize some people just really love being here, so don't let me spoil your fun if you're one of them. Ancient wisdom still holds true, so stay till you're 105, and go to Baranurki or Chef Muffrin. Now I know you're just itching to go to Azria now, or at least not be here, but the bears and muffins are still better than Metameds until 107, because of the damage penalty, and even at 107, they're pretty similar XP-wise if you prefer to get more drops. Some of you, especially the more experienced players, are gonna doubt what I just said. This is actually the end of the leveling route, and it's relevant to all of Darkon 3, so let me explain why the chart says the desert mobs are not as bad as you probably remember them. So the first, more obvious thing is back in 2024, right after FWC 2 ended, all the mobs in Darkon 3 got an XP buff, which is the reason there's weird stuff like Small Gongery giving less XP than any Luia, with the EXP bumps at Captain Mushpoi, Luia, and Kerns being a thing. Bear's XP was buffed by around 15%, and Muffin XP by around 25%. Mopranks got a 50% buff, but that doesn't matter because their block and parry are still too high, and they're still too close to Metameds. And the second thing is I made this chart assuming you have the max hit rate always, which is actually pretty unlikely in the desert. Take the two extreme ends here. At 105, jesters and billposters find themselves 6% short of max hit rate assuming a plus 8 set and plus 30 buffs, which I think is a reasonable estimate for 9-dish RM. Blades and Knights will have the same problem with a plus 6 set instead since they have extra hit rate from Smite Axe. If you're at Muffrins, you'll be 8% short, which doesn't sound like much, but for comparison, that's about the same as losing 2 to 3 upgrade levels on your weapon, or about the difference of having a cheer on you the whole time. Fix this, assuming you're full strength, you need about 73% hit rate on your character details window, which you can get just by using Dexions for 2 levels. It'll be better than those strength days, trust me. Unfortunately, the desert isn't the only place where hit rate issues can come up, so here's how much hit rate you need on your character window at every level against the mob 10 levels higher, assuming you have no extra dex added. For the most part, you should be trying to hit these thresholds by upgrading your set, but if that's not an option, a pair of Dexion plus 1s will show as 5% hit rate. They're actually worth about 10% total. And don't try to fix any hit rate issues by getting levels. You don't get all that much from closing the level gap. A level 61 at Green Monks has about 5% less hit rate than a level 71 at the same mob. At Glaffins, a level 92 only has 2% less hit rate than a level 102. And since we're splitting hairs about 5% hit rate, don't forget to element your weapon. It's a 39% damage increase just for having the correct plus 1, which is like 2 upcut stones. Or like upgrading your weapon 15 times. If you're a mercenary class with Empower weapon level 9, or you're just rich and upgraded your weapon to element plus 10, that's gonna be a 58% damage increase instead. That's so much damage there's not even a weapon upgrade comparison for that one. Now quests. Honestly, not much to discuss here unless it's literally the first days of FWC. They're all worth doing right away. No reason to delay any of them either, so here's the unlock level of every chain quest and the NPC who gives it to you. If you want more details, check Wikipedia or the in-game wiki. Special shout out to Dwarfed Kazan quest because the start of that quest is deep inside Decane, so you wouldn't see it unless you were specifically looking for it. See, was there anything else? Prems? Use these 3 I guess. You don't really have that much crit rate or crit damage, so I wouldn't recommend using the potions. Maybe with 1 of 5 gear possibly? Oh right, redux. So first thing, do I recommend you use them? No. These levels go by too quickly if you ask me. But if you do choose to reduce one of your weapons, there's an interesting discussion of which one. Most people I see like to reduce bloody weapons, which makes sense at first glance since it has lifesteal and it's not too difficult to find a maxed out one. But for anyone who's not reducing a fully maxed out bloody weapon, I'll argue it's generally more correct to reduce a legendary golden weapon instead. Let's look at the numbers to see why I say that. You're a jester. It's pretty clear you shouldn't even bother with reducing a bloody yo-yo ever because there's actually a good bit of damage tied to the critical chance on the LG. Going from historic to the legendary golden is a 13% DPS increase, but going from golden to bloody is only a 3 to 5% increase. The difference between historic and LG here is actually the same as going from an 8-8 LG to a 10-10 bloody. All this and the lifesteal on the bloody yo-yo doesn't even matter because Shivad enchant absorb since level 70. Rangers get more than an upcut's worth of DPS going from historic to LG at 22%. Much better than the 8% increase most rangers who reduce bloody at 110 will see because of the loss of critical chance. You can maintain 100% critical chance with Bloody Bowl. It's a 14% damage increase, which is better, but still a smaller increase. Blades and billposters are probably the best candidates for using their reductions on bloody instead of LG. Their historic to LG upgrade is only 3% more than LG to bloody, which is a gap easily closed by even a slightly better bloody weapon. Knights don't get a mention here because their Angel Big Axe is slightly better than their legendary golden weapons. And you don't even reduce an Angel Big Axe because you would lose a ton of attack speed unless your RM has Gebra Tifrith somehow. As another reminder, these were comparisons between weapons of similar upgrade. If you want to compare your own weapons, each level of regular and element upgrade adds, or reduces if you're downgrading I guess, your damage by about 2.5% at these levels. So there's something for you to think about. I've covered everything I wanted to share here, so I will see you around.